Today we're going to go over proportion word problems, so solving word problems that involve proportions. Proportions can be used to solve word problems in which there is a constant rate. So it is extremely important that you create a key and stay consistent when setting up your proportions. The units must match on each side of the equal sign. What do I mean by that? I mean, if I have something like miles to hours, and when I set up my proportion, I also need to have miles to hours, okay? It needs to be set up this way. It cannot be miles to hours equals hours miles. That will not work, okay? Will not work at all. So we need to go ahead and make sure that we have it set up so it is consistent. So that is why I always suggest that you make a key. So if you're working on a problem, right off to the side that you're going to do miles to hours. And then when you set up the proportion, set it up like so. So here's an example. The ratio of hot dogs to hamburgers sold at the fair is 8-3. If there were 272 hot dogs sold on Friday, how many hamburgers were sold? So a few things we need to figure out first. We need to figure out how many hamburgers were sold. Okay, so let's highlight what exactly we're looking for. And highlight the information we know, okay? You can underline it, but I like to highlight and somehow highlight in a different color if possible, or at least make different symbols. So hot dogs to hamburgers is 8-3. So hot dogs is first. It says hot dogs to hamburgers. So hot dogs are going to be 8 hot dogs. So I did hot dogs in both red. And then hamburgers, let's go to blue. So hot dogs to hamburgers, so hamburgers would be 3. So now that I've annotated my problem, let's go over here. So I have hot dogs over hamburgers. So we'll go ahead and write that out. Hot dogs, I have 8. Over hamburgers, I have 3. Equals, I don't know how many hamburgers were sold, but I do know that there were 272 hot dogs sold. So for hot dogs, I'm going to write 2. Keep working on the math. 8 times x is 8x equals 3 times 272 gives me 816. Now I want to solve for x. So if I'm solving for x, I want x by itself. I have 8x, 8 times x, the opposite of 8 times x. So the opposite of timesing something is to divide, is the inverse operation. Divide both sides by 8. That will cancel out, leaving me just x equals 8 goes into 816. How many times? Well, 8 goes into 8 once. 8 here, that'll bring down the 1. 8 can't go into 1, put a 0. Bring the 6 down. 8 goes into 16. How many times? 2. So x equals 102. So there are 102 hamburgers sold on Friday. Tom spent 18 hours practicing the guitar in 3 weeks. how much time does he practice the guitar in 7 weeks? So first, what are we looking for? We need to find out how much time he practiced the guitar in 7 weeks, okay? So 7 weeks, key part here is what we're looking for. What do we know? We know that he spends 18 hours practicing in 3 weeks. So we can go ahead and set up our key to solve this using proportions. So let's go hours over weeks. Okay, now the first proportion should be the information we know. What is the information we know? Well, I know he spends 18 hours practicing. So 18 hours over how many weeks? 3 weeks. So 18 over 3 equals how much time does he practice? So the time is what I'm looking for, right? I don't know the hours. That is my unknown. Over 7 weeks. So again, I have hours. So hours 18 here. And in my second proportion, hours is what I'm looking for. So that's my unknown. And then for the denominator, I have 3 weeks because 18 hours in 3 weeks. So that is set up properly in the correct proportion. And then 7 weeks is what I know, but I still don't know how much time. So once I have my proportion set up, we're going to go ahead and solve by cross multiplying and divide. So first, cross multiply. 3 times x equals 18 times 7. Do the math. 3 times x means 3x equals 18 times 7 gives me 126. Now I have 3x equals 126. I want to solve for x, okay? I want to get x by itself because that's what I'm looking for. Looking up here, we can remember we did 3 times x and got 3x. So the opposite of times, the inverse operation. So inverse operation of multiplication is division. So if I divide by 3, remember I have to if I do it to one side, I must do it to the other because I want them to stay equal. So if I divide both sides by 3, that will cancel out here, leaving me x. And 3 goes into 126 how many times? So 3 can't go into 1, but 3 goes into 12. How many times? It goes in 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. That will cancel the 0. Bring the last number down. 6. 3 goes into 6. How many times? 2. 2 times 3 gives me 6. They're done. So it goes in exactly 42. So 42 is x equals 42. So in 7 weeks, Tom will practice 42 hours.